especially in the wintertime, and that's why seasonal depression is definitely a thing. You get all your energy from, nature and the sun, just like plants do, and it's actually more simple than people think. Like if you ever watch Planet Earth or just, spend a weekend outside camping, you'll learn more about life from nature and wildlife than anything.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your fearless host, Angie Scott.
Hey, welcome to this week's episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer. I'm so glad you're here as always. So the universe works in the most mysterious ways. As a listener who has a love for nature and the outdoors, I'm sure you've experienced this many times for yourself. So recently, I've begun a journey of spiritual awakening. I've been meditating on a somewhat regular basis for a year or so as part of my morning routine, which also includes prayer, visualization, affirmations, some writing or journaling, reading, and exercising. To give credit where credit's due, I was first introduced to this routine by Joe Simons from Salt Strong in his book Fishing for Happiness, which has very little to do with fishing, but a lot to do with how to find happiness in life. This morning routine practice has led me down a path of enlightenment and expanding my awareness. Recently, my friend and previous podcast guest, Captain Debbie Hansen, who is down in Southwest Florida, highly recommended I connect with fly angler, hunter, and wellness coach by the name of Lexi Quinn. They had recently fished together, and Debbie described her as the real deal. So I trust Debbie's opinion, so of course I asked her if she would mind connecting us. As it turns out, Lexi's been on a very similar spiritual awakening journey. She's a lot further along than myself, but still in the process of growing and studying to become a life coach. I think the timing of this connection and our conversation to share with you could not be any better. There's no doubt we're in very trying times right now. Depression, suicide, and other major issues seem to be at an all-time high. This is a very important discussion that I think any human being can benefit from, regardless of what your particular beliefs are. So I hope you get something out of this, and if you do, please feel free to share it with us, either by leaving a review on your preferred podcast platform or sending a message via email to Angie@thewomanangler.com. I truly look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope it will help to change your experience in life for the better. Enjoy. This year has just been so crazy. I think, obviously for everybody, but I'm kind of like on this spiritual awakening kind of journey right now. And I've been like meditating a lot, and it's really impacting me. And so,
good.
Yeah. And so I was like, I haven't had anyone on the show to kind of like, I know you have your background in, hunting and fishing and you were a firefighter and all that, but like, I'd like to really focus on your, life coach stuff and kind of talk about all that and maybe inspire some other people. So
that is my goal.
Yeah.
And that is what I like talking about too, because I'm like on that border of like, okay, the universe is trying to tell me something, because I work as a bartender and I'm also part-time retail.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't mind like selling hunting products. Like, I worked with a couple yesterday that, it was their like first elk hunt, and I was getting them completely outfitted and everything they needed. And that part was refreshing, because it's like, I get to help somebody with what I went through, as far as like what they need and some tips and stuff like that. But other than that, like, that's a very rare occasion when that happens. But then it's just like, I'd so much rather be, doing something with fishing. Like, I love hunting for the most part. I mean, now I just do it because I need food. I'm more of like a waterfowl hunter, and I like can't stop fly fishing.
Yeah.
Like, I can't take a break. I was supposed to take a break when we went scouting, and I couldn't. I ended up finding brook trout in this tiny little creek.
Nice.
So,
awesome.
But I would so much rather talk about, like, sleep or meditation.
Yeah.
Or fly fishing, or, that's what I want to do.
Yep.
And I eventually want to start my own podcast, but I have no idea where to start. So I might have to pick your brain.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to ask you if you have a podcast.
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd definitely be up for helping you out with that. So you're in Colorado?
Yeah, we came from Isaiah and I used to both work for the Forest Service for a long time. And we like semi-retired from fire and started pursuing our own dreams. So he's actually a YouTuber, and I am trying to do like writing and a couple other different things. I own my own media business too. So I do like photography, videography for like weddings and any business that needs any marketing materials essentially. So I'm trying to focus more on that. So I have like a lot of things I'm trying to work on. It's just like taking that first step of leaving your safe jobs and pursuing what you really want to do. But the cost of living is like ridiculous in Colorado nowadays. It's pretty bad.
Like, I knew I didn't want to live my whole life sitting behind a desk and wake up at 65 and retire. And, that's just, I always knew that wasn't
Right.
for me. And Debbie and I talked about this when I was down in Florida last time. Cause, you probably talked with her about it too, but like her parents, they kind of lived that life and got to retirement, and now they both have cancer, and it's like, you can't, they worked so hard saving all that time for retirement, and then now here they are and they can't enjoy it,
That's what I keep trying to tell my dad, like it's scary for me to see, because I see like he just turned 50 and he's almost completely gray already. And he just looks old. And you can just see what the stress has done to him over his life. Like, not even just stress, but just lack of sleep. Because he works 2 jobs and, like, yeah, he wants to have that extra money, but it's like, dude, you're gonna guarantee yourself a disease that will kill you in your older life. Like, it's not the American dream anymore, is to, and like Shields, for example, they have a pretty awesome retirement plan, and you get ESOP, which is like, because it's a employee-owned business, so you can essentially retire a millionaire if you wanted, but it's not worth it. It's not worth the stress. It's not worth the amount of time you're dedicating to a place like that for 50 years, and you just watch your life disappear. You're essentially like giving up your life to someone else just to have that money in your adult life, or in like your retired life essentially, but you won't even be able to use it because you'll be sick. So that's what I want to encourage a lot of people to do, is like, if you're like me, for example, I've been having stress dreams a lot, and that's when it'll start. It'll start with like stress dreams, and then it'll escalate into, like for you, it was rashes. For me, it's, who knows what it'll be, acne or something. But there's just so many people that don't realize that that's stress related.
Yep. Yeah, I had to go to the doctor and I was like, okay, am I allergic to something that I'm eating? Like, what's going on here? And she's like, that was the first thing she went to, was like, well, is your job, like, are you stressed at your job? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, it's stress. I'm like, really? Like, I thought for sure I was like having some sort of allergic reaction. Had no idea that like stress could manifest itself in the body that way,
Obviously, like, everyone who enjoys fishing, if they could, would just love to only ever just fish. You know what I mean? So there's just, because I'm like a huge advocate for, if there's something that people are doing as far as a career goes that's not like resonating with them, or that's not like really feeding their soul, I guess you could say, then they should be doing something else. So kind of like encouraging people to do that, like figure out, you know, what they do for a living now versus what they want to be doing and how to get there, stuff like that.
I've been inspired throughout my life by certain people who have like taken that leap, you know, where they were stuck in a job that they knew wasn't for them. And then they like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Salt Strong brothers, Joe and Luke Simons down in Florida.
Mm-mm.
So they both were working corporate America. Joe worked in like finance industry, was making like 6 figures. So doing really, really well, but knew that this was not his like life's calling, you know, his passion. And so he quit. They both brothers quit their really secure jobs and just put everything they had into starting this company called Salt Strong. And
what do they do?
So now when they initially started it, they didn't really know what they were doing. And so they just knew they loved fishing. And Joe actually lived in Georgia at the time, and he relocated down to Florida where his brother was. And he had a family and a wife and, you know, everything. So he had a lot on the line, but they started out selling apparel and then quickly realized like, yeah, we're not passionate about selling apparel. And they actually got it pretty successful. They were like making a good amount of money a month selling apparel, but, again, that wasn't their passion. So they went back to the drawing board, and now they do, online courses teaching people how to fish, basically. So you can sign up, and have access to these courses. So they focus a lot on inshore fishing. But they're kind of branching out a little bit more now, and they've been really successful at it. So
that's like your really good like story, an example of people who, and because it's extremely difficult to do. Like not a lot of people can just up and quit their job and do something else, especially for people like them who are doing really well financially,
mm-hmm.
you know. And they're like, you know, this just, you know, yes, I'm doing well because everyone wants financial freedom,
mm-hmm.
but it's to take that step and like actually change your life completely around, even if you are doing well, because a lot of people do it because they're not doing well financially. So to have like, you know, a perfect example of people who are still financially stable, but who have also done it just because they want to do something that resonates with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's exactly what I want to try to encourage people to do.
Yeah.
Including myself. I'm kind of on the way there, but...
They say, like, you know, whatever it is that you do when you totally lose track of time, you know, that's what your passion is, like when you're in the flow or whatever they call it, you know. And so that's exactly what happens to me when I'm out on the water. So it's like trying to figure out a way to be able to support myself doing what I love.
That.
Yeah.
I'm that way too. Like, it'll be storming, and Isaiah, my boyfriend, jokes with me all the time. He's like, there could be a tornado behind you and you'll still fish. And it's always like, oh, just one more, or let me just cast one more time, and it ends up being like 30 minutes. But I mean, I kind of did the same thing too. I'm still doing the same thing where, you know, it's like, I know the universe is trying to tell me because of the way, you know, I'm having stress dreams and I'm just constantly stressed and overwhelmed, trying to juggle a lot. And it's like I'm just getting frustrated at work and just like not happy doing what I'm doing at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I know I need to just do something else. This is the universe's way of saying, hey, hello, go work for yourself.
Yep.
But I mean, there's still that underlying fear that's like, no, I still need at least one, you know, even if it's just part-time, just source of income.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, my boyfriend's a perfect example. Like, he is a moto vlogger, and, you know, he hasn't had a job in almost 7 months, and like, yeah, accruing a ton of debt, but he's actually, you know, advancing his self-employment career as being a YouTuber way faster than he ever would have even working part-time. So he's like dedicating all of his time and energy into this, and now he's actually, you know, well on his way to becoming self-employed.
That's awesome.
So I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, you know, I'm still bartending part-time and working retail part-time, but, you know, I think in a couple weeks after I finish my classes and stuff, then I'll be on the same path. But yeah, I mean, it definitely takes like a huge wake-up call. Like your health starts getting affected for you to finally decide, okay, I need to do something else. And it's scary for anybody to do, but once you do it once, you know, as we grow, like you know, you left your job and moved to Nashville to work in the music industry. And then 16 years later, like, boom, you're a different person. You know, that's
Right.
not uncommon. People change and we grow and find different interests. And now, you know, you've done it a second time where now.
Yeah. And
it's not as hard the second time.
No, yeah, and I think if it were to happen again, because like actually now I've been led down a path where I'm getting back into another job, but it's doing what I love to do, you know. So I won't be working for myself, which, you know, that's. Some people are okay with, some people don't want to work for themselves, you know? It's
right.
Like some people want that.
That's not easy either.
Yeah. And that's what I've kind of come to figure out through this is like, I kind of like working for somebody else. But I want to be doing what I'm passionate about. And that's kind of the path that I've been led back down. So if down the road, you know, that should happen again, you're right. I think it will be easier to make that transition, but it's scary. I mean, like, you know, you think about accruing a bunch of debt and it's like, what if this doesn't work? And then what, you know? And so there's a lot of fear that people have and it's totally understandable. And so people go about it all sorts of different ways. Like, you know, you may keep your bartending job while you're trying to put all your other time into, you know, making your new path or dream happen. Some people just go full in like your boyfriend, and other people just never, you know, or some people work full time and then they burn candles at both ends trying to make their side hustle, you know, work outside of their.
And it's the same thing with like the gym. You know, so many people promise themselves that they're going to go work out and they're going to stick to it, but then they never do. And there's like a huge underlying reason for that. And it's because, you know, there's a lot of psychology behind a lot of that too, is, you know, there's this weird connection that we have to money now. And to me, it took me a lot of years to like, you know, form a different perspective on how I view money or how I view just anything. And I just, like, I've been through, you know, a lot of difficult times in my life and struggles, but, you know, here I am, 27 years old. I'm still alive. I survived. I'm not homeless. You know what I mean? Like, my life's not ending. So if you just, and I think it's easier for, you know, people who have went through those tough times. But I mean, if you just look at your life and just tell yourself, hey, I'll be fine. Everything is figure outable is my motto.
Yeah, I love that.
And, you know, money, you can always make more. So, I mean, I'm not condoning like, yeah, go into debt and like just spend a ton of money. Like, no, if you're going to make that leap, definitely still be, you know, conscious on spending and stuff. But, you know, just pay your absolute minimums and try not to exceed spending if you don't have to. But you have to spend money to make money, and there's so much truth to that. So, and I'm doing it now, you know, like I'm about to spend, you know, $1,500 or more on school and certifications, even though I'm already thousands of dollars in student loan debt from, you know, when I went through the fire academy. So I'm still paying for a degree I'll never use.
Like right now, especially, I think a lot of people with this whole pandemic thing that's happened, I think it's caused a lot of people to kind of look at their lives and reconsider like what's really important to me, you know? Um,
And I think that's one of the major benefits, as much as I believe that, the coronavirus was a huge political scam and, whatever my opinions and beliefs are, I do see some positives that came out of this, and it's exactly that. Is it's waking up a lot of people.
definitely has. And I look at the music industry that I was in, and now all my friends that work for that company that I worked for 16 years are out of a job. And that's just kind of a bit of a wake up call for me too. It's like, man, no, I actually didn't really have a choice because they eliminated my position, but let's say that didn't happen, I would probably still be there, and then I would be one of those people that are now suddenly don't have a job, and I wouldn't be on this amazing path that I'm on now.
And some people, like, it just happens to them. And for other people, it's more of like it shows up to you in a form of a message, like, hey, you end up getting really sick, or you start, getting depressed or whatever. And that's what it will take for some people. Like, everybody needs to find that reasoning or find their why a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Some people it's just going to happen to them. Others it's just going to be, something bad that happens that wakes them up. But either way, the end result is extremely rewarding.
Definitely. And yeah, and we all have our own stories, that, like, we have stories about our relationship or our thoughts about money and these blocks and things like that pop up into our lives. And I don't know about, I might be more stubborn than most people, but, like, I feel like the universe has to present things to me in different ways. The same thing in like 20 different ways before it actually like sinks in, or I find a way that it actually resonates with me, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yep. Might take a time or two, but
yeah, or 50.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about life beyond limits, and like, how did you kind of get, like, what led you down that path?
It was 2 years ago. I mean, I've always been interested in that kind of stuff. I just never got into it deeper, just because I felt like it was this taboo thing that nobody, like, people thought I'd be weird for it. Like, I'd cared too much about what other people thought at the time. And I was just like, oh, especially since I grew up in a very Christian home, meditation was just like, it almost felt like to meditate was like a very anti-Christian thing to do, or to have any connection to any like spiritual anything was just forbidden, essentially. But then I got older, and then I started studying like different religions and different ways of life, and there's just so much out there that we just have yet to understand. And like it first started when I started traveling, so that helped a lot, just because it really became like, it turned me in against being a narrow-minded, judgmental person to like, holy crap, other people's way of life is so much better. Like, yeah, they don't have the freedoms that we have, they don't have the luxuries that we do, but is that even necessary? Like, do we really need those things, or is it the way of life and how you live that is most important? And like, these people are just so much happier.
Where was it you were traveling, like, as example, where you noticed this?
Like certain parts of France or Greece or Thailand being a big one. Where else? Paris, like, yeah, it was in the city, but even when I went to London, if you go on like the outskirts, there's just different cultures there. And then I watched a couple documentaries about Ayurveda, which I don't know if you've heard about before. It's a drug, actually. It's a psychedelic drug. But they do it in Peru, and it's not for everyone. It's not for the mentally unstable, that's for sure. But it's just like a ritual that they partake in, and essentially what it does is it's a psychedelic, but it like separates your soul from your vessel is how they explain it. And you see like you have this major awakening. But for some people, like if if people were schizophrenic or bipolar or something like that, they could have an opposite reaction. So there's obviously goods and bads to it. But the culture in this like tiny community in Peru, they have like it's very tiny community. Everyone helps everyone. Everyone, one family will grow this food for this person. One person will like raise chickens, and it's like a community thing. I just thought that was really cool. Because especially nowadays in the U.S., people don't do that anymore. It's just like everyone fends for themselves. You're on your own. Sorry. And then that's just our mindset. So it's like when we see somebody that needs help, it's like a question in our head. Do we do it? Do we not do it? And it's like if you go to other places, their natural reaction is to help. It was just over the last 2 years for sure is when, I've always, because I grew up always constantly like feeling like the black sheep, feeling like I was different, never really fitting in anywhere, never really good at sports. And then like I literally lived my entire life just thinking I was just, there was something wrong with me essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until 2 years ago that I was like on a hotshot crew in fire, having the worst year of my life because I was dealing with like harassment and just wasn't in a good place. I was very suicidal because I was just in a place where I felt like I couldn't leave. All the guys, because I was, the only female on a 1922 guy crew. So I was kind of like stuck there. And then I kind of pieced together like all the trauma I've been through in my life because, growing up, I didn't have the greatest childhood in the world. My dad was very mentally and physically abusive. He's way, way, way better now in his adult life. But when we were growing up, he just struggled as an adult with himself and his background. I met Isaiah, who is my boyfriend now. We've been together for over 2 years now. And when I met him, he was kind of like very similar to me in a sense that like so have you ever heard of the term empath?
Yes, I have.
So he's an empath and so am I. I'm more of an HSP versus an empath. But I didn't even know what that was. Like I had read about it when him and I met, or before him and I met, but then when him and I actually met, we actually had a chance to like talk about it and what it was. And the more we talked about it, the more things started to click in my head. Like, holy crap, this makes so much sense. And that's why I've felt so different my whole life. And
explain what that is for somebody who doesn't know.
So an HSP, there's a highly sensitive person or an empath. An empath is more sensitive than anyone. It's a person who you're either born with it or you develop it because of trauma that you've like severe trauma in your life. And it develops over time. So as you get older, it gets stronger and stronger. So it's essentially an ability. You absorb energies around you. So say, you walk into a room and it's full of, people who are just miserable and sad, and like you'll absorb all that energy and you'll just become sad. Mm-hmm. You'll become angry and you can't explain why. Sometimes you won't even notice it. It'll just sink in, and then a couple hours later you're just all of a sudden angry. So you essentially like absorb all the energy around you and it affects you. So it's very difficult to determine what energy is yours and what someone else's. You process things differently, like your perspectives are more advanced. Like essentially you have an advanced nervous system is how they explain it. So your nerves are more affected, your energies are more affected. I mean, it affects everyone differently because there's 4 different types of empaths. There's like plant empaths, nature empaths. So like if you go out in nature, for you it might be water. I think you could be water. There's plant, nature, water, and then there's one other one. But if you're like if you take a shower or a bath or you go swimming, you just feel completely cleansed of all bad energy. Like you feel renewed or refreshed. And that's what like nature does for people. That's what plants do for people. There's so much more to it. I think there's one podcast that I found, which I can send you. And it literally breaks down both, like how to tell if you are one or what the difference between the two is. And once I listened to that, it was like I felt so relieved because I was like, holy cow, I'm not crazy or there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just this is what I am. And there's so many people that are like depressed and miserable and sad because they're empaths and they have no idea how to control it. And they have no idea how to filter through it. So they're living with other people's feelings and they have no idea what to do with it. So that's what kind of got me started into diving more into that kind of stuff.
So, and had you been like doing meditation and stuff like that, or is that something more recent?
That's something new. Okay. And it makes a huge difference. Because I've always known that like baths and being in nature like really helps me out. But now I'm taking it like a step further. I'm not great at meditation yet. Mm-hmm. I still suck at it, but it takes time. Like it doesn't have to be 15 minutes. It can literally be, 2 to 3 minutes or 5 minutes or even just a minute your first until you get the hang of it. I also have ADD really bad, which it's very difficult for me to focus. Mm-hmm. So I'm still trying to work through that part of it.
So I've heard that meditation, it takes practice, obviously, and to be able to just kind of observe your thoughts and not give any meaning to them. They're just neutral. Just observe them, let them come in, let them flow out while you're meditating. It takes practice. But I've heard that like the practice of meditation helps a lot with people that have ADD and stuff like that. So,
because you're essentially like teaching yourself awareness. You're teaching yourself to focus, and just like anything, the more you practice, the better you get.
Right.
So I totally believe that ADD is curable. Mm-hmm. I do.
Without medication.
Yep. And that's another thing too is, I am very anti-doctor for most things. Like I still have to go to the doctor for, women physicals and all that fun, great stuff. But as far as medication, I have not taken medication over 3 years.
Wow.
I haven't been sick in about 4 at all. So as far as me getting COVID, not even worried about it.
And that's something like I'm not there yet, but like I've heard people that say like, I'm not a person who gets sick. And so then they don't get sick. It's just a matter of believing it.
But what are people's responses, do you think, when people say that?
Like to themselves or outside?
To others. To others.
They're like, you're crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But did you ever notice how your insurance never covers like chiropractic appointments or cryotherapy or acupuncture or anything like that?
Yeah.
You usually pay full price for that kind of stuff. That kind of treatment is way more effective than any medication. And that's kind of the thing too, is like when you start diving into this kind of stuff, you'll notice a huge drastic change in your friends, because you start to learn, the secrets of, what's behind big pharma and like the government, and you start to find these things out and you're not like ignorant to it anymore. And it starts to open more windows to more things that you start to find out. And people will think you're crazy. That's been my struggle. But I'm fine with it. I'm going to keep, pushing on and learning and teaching. And like, for example, I've tore apart the vegan diet more times than I can count. I've tore apart the keto diet because in certain ways, like, it is a beneficial diet, but in a very short time frame.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meant to be long. It's meant to be like a handful of months and that's it.
Right.
Like, fasting is good, but again, like, there's just certain things that if people don't know what they're doing, they shouldn't do it. So I'm learning about, sleep habits, and that's essentially what I want to do for people. I'm going to be focusing more on, like, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a personal trainer. That's kind of more Isaiah's realm of things. But I'm going to teach people about, lifestyle habits. Like, hey, if you're working a job and you notice yourself becoming sick because you're stressed out all the time, you have to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I've got a sleep ring. It's called an Aura ring, and it monitors my body temperature. It monitors my breathing, my heart rate, and everything, and gives me a score every day on how well my sleep was. So if my sleep isn't good, I know my performance or my mindset won't be good.
Yeah, sleep is
so that's
important.
Probably, oh yeah. As far as like diets and stuff goes, like, I have my own garden. I grow my own food. I kill my own food. But as far as like the vegan diet, for example, to only eat vegetables and to not eat any animal anything is so not good for you, because just because like an animal will have horns to defend itself, and plants don't have that. They're just stationary. They're stuck there. So their form of protection is to have toxins. So all plants have toxins in them. So if you're eating too many, just like anything, you can overdose on them. And eating too many plants can kill you over time. Like, yes, you'll feel great, you'll feel energized, and that's normal, but you don't feel the effects of the toxins. And that's why, there's moderation in everything.
Right.
Like when we eat, all of our nutrients go to our organs. So it's the same for animals. So to eat animal organs like liver and kidney, which is absolutely disgusting, in my opinion, but it's a superfood. I've been studying a lot about that. So a lot of people, if they can't eat it, which I'm one of those people who can't, you can freeze it and cut it up in like super, super tiny pieces and just swallow it like a pill.
Okay.
And it's like a huge, huge beneficial superfood, especially for women, because it's got like 3 major chemicals in it that we lack in our bodies naturally. Like, we just don't produce a lot as much as we're supposed to with the new, food that's out nowadays. But just, diving into all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Different energies. Like, how there's people that are, psychic essentially, or who can read palms and all that stuff. That's basically just them reading energy. And everybody has the ability to do it. It's just that, like, well, and when you meditate, like, you're reconnecting with yourself essentially. But so many people are just so disconnected from themselves and their full potential. They're just nowhere near anymore. And that's why there's so many people with mental health issues, and we're just, like sheep essentially, or we just feel lost or stuck, or like we're just kind of floating through life, just doing our thing. And there's just so many people that are just extremely disconnected.
Totally. Yeah. And it's all about expanding your awareness and being more present. That's something I'm terrible at. And so meditation helps, be present in the moment. I'm so bad at that. And so that's something you practice, and I trust I'll get better at being more present as time goes on. But, and just, you talk about, people thinking you're crazy when you talk about this stuff. And that's all something we just have to get over, because that's our ego that's worried about that. And so me putting this podcast episode out, there's probably going to be people out there that are listening to it that, they're like, wow, she's out there, but
I'm ready.
I want people to wake up, I want to help people.
Now's the time.
Yeah, exactly. Especially
because the world is becoming so scary.
Especially now with, everything that's going on in our world. It's like there's got to be an awakening that happens. So talk about fly fishing. Like, what draws you to that in particular, and does it tie in with everything that you're going through on this journey?
Yeah, kind of. Actually, yeah, it does a lot more than I think. Fly fishing and even now, like, it's one of those things that I've wanted to give up so many times. Like, when I was younger, archery saved my life, essentially. I never was good at sports. I never fit in with any of, like, I had never had a clique of friends. So as soon as I started shooting a bow, I was like really good at it. So I latched onto it, got really good, and traveled all over doing competitions and different hunts and stuff for that. Well, in my adult life, doing, like, finding out this whole empath thing and spirituality and all that stuff, it's been a struggle. So archery isn't really a passion anymore. It's something I just do for survival. But fly fishing is a whole different story. It is extremely difficult. It takes a lot of skill and patience, which I have none of. I have zero patience. Fly fishing is just, like, I've been doing it for 3 years. I'm not the greatest at it. Like, yeah, I catch fish, but I still have a lot of work to do. So it's like the same process. It's still a learning curve, and it just is teaching me patience. It's teaching me, that a good journey takes time, and this is just part of the process, and you just have to, like, be present and let it happen.
Awesome.
So I'm kind of in the same process with fly fishing that I am with my spiritual journey. It's still a learning process. I don't know how to explain it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
It's really fun when I do it. Even if I don't catch anything, I'm just so determined and so focused. And I think that's another thing too, is I'm usually never focused on any one thing for long periods of time because of my ADD. But fly fishing teaches me focus. It teaches me patience. And that's the only time that I'm ever focused on one thing is when I'm fishing.
Yep. I totally get that. I've not personally gotten into fly fishing, so I just do conventional, but, like being I got to go down to Florida with Jen Ripple and Heather Hodson for their Redfish Roadie road trip, this past fall. And so I got to catch my first fish on the fly. I totally get it. I see why people love it and the challenge of it. But for me, like, I'm watching them, cast the fly rod, over and over and over. And I'm like, wow, it's so much work. And I'm just like,
pretty too.
It is. It's so artistic.
That's what I like about it.
So what's your goal with, where are you at right now with your life coaching?
At the beginning stages, okay. I was a manager of the hunting department at Shields for the last year, but I stepped down recently to part-time so I could go back to school, and I think I'm going to do it online. To get several certifications to be a life coach. Technically, you don't need to be certified, but I obviously, just for legitimacy and for, insurance and liability and all that stuff, I'm going to. I'm going to start with, taking a course in sleep studies, and I'm going to get my Reiki practitioner certification, meditation. I want to teach meditation. So I want to go to Nepal, India, where it originated, and study meditation for like 2 to 3 weeks with the monks, and then come back here and teach it.
Cool.
So that's a plan. And then I want to, what else do I need to get? I want to learn about, like, chakra treatment, Reiki treatment. There was one more. I want to eventually get my nutritionist based on ideologies that I have. Which is, it's called the carnivore diet. It's based on, like, yes, you eat vegetables, but you are consuming animal organs, animal fat, and animal products. So, like, milk that's pasteurized a certain way, or butter or ghee. stuff like that. I even went to the extent of, I recently just threw away all of my shampoo, conditioner, face wash, toothpaste, household cleaners, makeup, all that stuff, just threw it away. And I started completely over to vegan, cruelty-free products that would meet UK standards. So over in the UK, they have like 48 chemicals that they ban from their country, kind of like Australia does with corn syrup. But the US only bans 10. So part of people's issues in the US, whether it be, struggle with weight or struggle with like mental health issues or acne, hormonal imbalances, hyper or hypothyroidism, all of that stems from the chemicals that we put on our body through our skin. Because our skin is our biggest organ in our body. So a lot of your makeups and your shampoos will have like formaldehyde and petroleum in it, which are gases and chemicals, and that's causing people to become sick.
Right.
So I'm going to be teaching people about that as well. So I'm going to be, have a ton of certifications, and eventually I want to do holistic medicine with like essential oils, CBD, stuff like that. But I'm not going to get my doctorate just because it's going to take forever. I might, we'll see, but right now probably not. I'm just going to do, as advanced as I can without needing my master's.
So what advice, I know you're still kind of in that transition period, but you're working towards it, which is awesome. And so that's gotta feel good to know that, you're not just sitting there unhappy with what you're doing. You're actually working towards it. Do you have any advice for people out there that are kind of in a similar situation?
I think a lot of it is because I'm extremely guilty of it too. Like I keep promising myself, hey, I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to start, working out every day, and, it lasts like a week to a month, and then you find an excuse or find a reason that you're busy. And I think the biggest thing to like get around that is sitting yourself down, being present, and remembering why you're doing it in the first place. And if your why isn't strong enough, for example, if you're doing it for someone else, or if you're doing it because you want to like look a certain way for other people, then you're never going to get there because your why isn't for you, it's for someone else. So I think if people really want to change and make a change, like a drastic one in their life, they have to do it for themselves, for their health, and just for the overall benefit of living a happier, healthy life. Because the way I see it is, like, I have a very different, unique outlook on the world, which is pretty common with empaths. But I just feel like there's so much more to life than, you're born, you go to school, you go all the way from kindergarten through college, and then you go work for the big guy. You know what I mean? Like, you just find a job, go to college, get a degree, and then you're in debt until you get a job, and then you pay it off, and then you work until you retire when you're 50, or, whenever you end up retiring. So a lot of people, it's 65, 70. But by then you're wore out, you're old and can't really do a whole lot, or you can't, like if your goal is to travel and do a lot of hiking, like, you're not able to do that as much at that age. And by then, a lot of people are just like sick with disease and cancer,
right?
Because they lived an incredibly stressful life. Like, yeah, you retire with a ton of money, but is it worth it? No, probably not.
Yeah, I feel like the view of how you what's normal, quote unquote, on how to live life that we were raised with is just so messed up.
Our society's become very backwards. I don't know if have you ever seen that movie Idiocracy?
No, I've heard of it. I have not. I think somebody else recommended I watch it, but I haven't seen it.
Oh
yet.
Yeah, especially now. You'll laugh and a huge light bulb will go off in your head.
I'll check that out.
But I mean, it's scary to think, and it's also extremely sad. Just I've just seen it over the last 10, 20 years. And, obviously when I was younger, I was more naive to it than I am now, but I always heard my parents talking about it. And my parents still, up until 5 years ago, my dad was still like, oh, you have to, get a job and you shouldn't job bounce around so much. And you really just need to go to college and get a degree and blah, blah, blah. But then once he started seeing the way I was living my life, I lived as a nomad until 2 years ago. I didn't have a home. I lived out of my car and traveled and lived in government housing when I worked for the Forest Service. And it was awesome. But, I lived life on my terms and I was able to travel because I didn't work half the year. And that's what did it for me. Mm-hmm. That is what opened my eyes to different, lifestyles when I went to Thailand and England and other countries. You see how other people live. Is it rich and famous? Is it with a ton of money? No, probably not. But if you look at their quality of life versus the quantity in their life is a drastic difference. Mm-hmm. And to me, I just don't feel like we're meant to just, you live, you work, you die. That's it. I feel like there's just so much more out there for us than what we're told from media or society. And I think, I don't know, I mean, I know how, but it's just really sad to see that we as humans have been so brainwashed and so much of a follower than a leader to, let society get this way, mm-hmm. as bad as it is.
From billion-dollar ad budgets and arena naming rights to tens of thousands of retail locations, big wireless providers spend big to appear like they're your only option. How do they afford it all? That big bill you get at the end of every month. Mint Mobile had a different idea. Instead of brick and mortar overhead, Mint Mobile is online only. What does that mean for you? A whole lot of savings, because wireless plans from Mint Mobile start at just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You'll save enough that you can get a brand new rod and reel for the upcoming season. For anyone who just hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan, and you can even keep your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. By going online only and eliminating traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes significant savings on to you. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That's mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
Yeah, I think, people like us and people listening to this podcast that have a love for the outdoors, whether it be fishing or hunting or just, hiking or whatever it is, that I think maybe that kind of opens our eyes up a little bit more to, to see what's really important. I know that was a big thing for me, when I was working my day job. One of the biggest things that I couldn't stand about it was the fact that I was in an interior office with no windows. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how can I live my life 9 hours a day and not even see the sun? And certain times a year, I'd come in, it'd be dark. I'd go home, it would be dark. And I'm like, life is not meant to be lived like this.
Especially in the wintertime. And that's why seasonal depression mm-hmm. is definitely a thing.
Oh, yeah.
You get all your energy from nature and the sun, just like plants do. And it's actually more simple than people think. If you ever watch Planet Earth or just, spend a weekend outside camping, you'll learn more about life from nature and wildlife than anything. They have predators and we're the apex predator, but still, their life is pretty simple and pretty free, I guess you could say.
I see that looking at my dog.
Oh my gosh, dogs especially. I can't the connection I have with dogs is like completely unreal. Like every time I see one, they like make my entire day just because they're so full of love and happiness, and they're just always that way. And it's like, well, I'm kind of jealous of my dog now.
I know. I'm like, yeah, she gets so happy at the littlest things. Or I was doing a boat ride the other day, and it was somebody else's dog that was riding on the boat, but she was sitting on the bow and her tail was just going back and forth the entire time, just the happiest thing in the world. And I'm happy on a boat, but I'm like, I'm not even that happy.
Right.
It's pretty awesome. I think everybody should have dogs in their lives.
We could learn so much from them.
Yes. For sure.
And then you look out, especially with after, COVID and everything, there's so much, and this is what I've been struggling with quite a bit lately, is just all the negativity and the hate and the division. And, you're allowed to have different opinions and different beliefs and not hate each other for it. But at the same time, there's so many people out there that, their feelings and their opinions and their viewpoints on stuff isn't even, what's the best way to describe it? It isn't even theirs. It's, someone else's. Or I just feel like there's so many people out there that, not saying that they can't or won't think for themselves, but they just haven't. Their information, like where they're getting their information from, is super skewed. I mean, to be honest, we live in the age of information nowadays. So even for me, I was looking up, how to take there's a handful of classes I need to take, but I go online to go sign up for one, and there's 80 different options for, a huge range of prices. And it's like, how do I know what's going to be a good class? How do I know what information is going to be fact? Or, we just live in where anybody can just write something up and put it online and now it's fact.
Right.
That's not the case. So it's extremely difficult for a younger generation to find good information, especially when they're trying to do research.
Yeah. And this whole pandemic thing is a perfect example of that, because you read one thing and then you read the opposite thing. And it's like, well, how in the world is anyone supposed to know what's factual and what isn't? It's
well, and like I said, age of information, it's extremely tough, especially for students, because even the education system is skewed. They're only being taught, a certain viewpoint or certain things about history, and a lot of important stuff is being left out. And, I listened to a podcast earlier this week about social media and how it's making people sick mentally. And it basically talks about how there's always this instant gratification, and people are having more self-esteem issues now than ever before, just because, they're constantly sitting in front of technology, which everybody knows the health impacts of that. And then just seeing everybody's highlight reel all the time. There's a lot of comparison going on. There's a lot of judgment going on, a lot of bullying. The list goes on. And it's just hurting people. And at this point, it's like, well, you're not going to be able to get away from it.
right.
And that's where I'm going to come in and, teach people the difference of, hey, if you're following this account and it makes you feel a certain way, whether they're a bad person or not, don't follow them because it's affecting you negatively. Like if you're finding yourself doing a lot of comparison or, whatever. And we, like I said, have this instant gratification. So if we don't get that in life, we have certain emotions that come up, and it's just essentially making people mentally unhealthy.
Right. Is that what your focus is going to be on?
Yeah, I mean, I look around and I just see a lot of lost, disconnected people that, they are easy to anger, and they're very depressed, and they're very not connected with themselves and who they are. They don't have self-confidence. They are just angry, or like, anytime I run into somebody who's just like really rude, instead of, in my head, the first thought that goes through my head isn't, oh, wow, this person's a huge jerk. It's, wow, they're really struggling.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can teach people a different perspective, a good morning routine, lifestyle habits, the importance of sleep, the importance of a certain diet, and I don't mean diet by, not eating or eating certain foods. I just mean, what they're putting in their bodies or on their bodies. And I just feel like I really want to help people just get back on track and live a life at peak performance. There's so many people that just don't have energy, or they're just having mood swings all the time. They don't have success in their relationships or friendships because of it. There's just a laundry list of things that people are struggling with, and myself included, have had to work through these things over the last couple of years, but I just feel like there's so many people that just need a different change in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And need to just be told, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. These are just issues that are going on in your life, and this is why. I think human beings are just very why driven.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a reason for something. They always, we have a tendency to want to problem solve, and this is kind of a way to do that. So I'm going to be teaching people about, meditating so people can reconnect with themselves. Biohacking, which is basically hacking into your body's function to improve, mental health and overall energy and, a healthy immune system, healthy heart, healthy organs, teaching people about sleep. That's going to improve a laundry list of issues like, stamina and, again, energy, mental clarity, all of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely needed. I mean, you're going through that list, and I'm like, yep, I could use improvement in all of those areas. I have a pretty good morning routine that I like, and it's been pretty transformational in my life to have that. And so that's super important. That, it includes meditation and visualization and affirmations. And that's probably been the single biggest thing that's positively impacted my life in the last year, I guess, or so it's been since I've been doing that. And so that's super important. I kind of have these like goals for myself, like health goals, and like kind of this vision of like who I want to be. And one thing that I've heard that's really resonated with me recently is, you hear people say, well, act as if you are that person right now. Mm-hmm. But somebody took it a step further. It was a podcast I was listening to, and he said, be as if. And I'm like, whoa. Yeah. Instead of just act as if, like, be as if. I'm like,
and that's honestly the way to do it. Yeah. Like, if people can realize that you can't change someone else, but if they want to change, you can guide them on how. And nobody's ever going to, we're never going to be perfect. There's no human being out there that is ever going to be perfect, but there's always room for growth. We can literally grow every single day to live the exact life that we want. Some people just need help getting there, which that's honestly the majority of people, even myself. I've hired coaches, I've hired mentors, I've listened to hours and hours of books and classes and podcasts to get where I'm at. And I'm still nowhere near where I want to be, but that's a good thing. You know what I mean? At least I have something that I'm working towards that I'm extremely passionate about. And I fully believe that, I'll have my financial freedom. I'll be self-employed. I can go travel and live an extraordinary life. Life is super short, and I just feel like that there's a lot of people out there that they're just floating on by, or they're settling, and they're just not truly happy, and everyone deserves a fulfilling life, I think. So
definitely. Yeah, well, that's so awesome. Yeah, it's so needed. I think if we didn't need help, we would all be on that path. So that's, definitely, I'll take all the help I can get. I know, I know for one. But if you believe that that's going to happen, I'm one of those too, that if you believe it, it is going to happen. So, I'm looking forward. I'm so glad we connected, and I'm looking forward to seeing you, go down this path and get to that point where you're helping people like that. Maybe I'll be one of your first clients.
Heck yeah.
So,
well, and even like there's so many people out there that like empaths, for example, who, it starts off at a young age. They're either born with it or they develop it through traumas, but they live the majority of their entire life, if nobody ever teaches them about it, with struggle, struggle with relationships, struggle with friends, struggle in general. Like they suffer essentially almost their whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hate seeing that because I was one of those people until a couple years ago. And I know how much it's changed my life. And there's not a lot of empaths out there, but the ones that are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And the world needs them to use their gift to help other people. So if they're struggling, they can't be helping other people. So my goal is to help figure out who's out there still that needs help and how we can get them to a point where they can use their gift for the good.
Awesome. Yep, that's what I believe. I think it's all about is, figuring out how we, with our talents and abilities, can add value to other people and help. So,
well, I feel like if, there's so many people that want the world to change, but not a lot of people are willing to put in the work to do it. And all it takes is one person. Like if you can live every single day with the intention of making a positive impact on one person's life a day, you would be amazed at the amount of change you can provide, just you as one person.
Yep, and you said a key word there too, is setting an intention. Like that's something I need to get better at, is being intentional with the different things that I do throughout the day. Like, actually set a specific intention, and that helps a lot.
Makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't get to it, you're at least setting the intention. So, if you don't get to it today, you'll get to it tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. Well, there's not always tomorrow, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Well, awesome. So what's kind of your timeline? Are you doing classes now then? Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Good deal.
Yeah, I'm doing classes now. I'm already kind of helping people with the sleep aspect of things. I'm going to be helping people with, starting off with just like lifestyle habits, going through their habits and, what they're doing on a daily basis, how we can improve their sleep, which will increase energy performance, helping people with like what they're eating or not eating, and just, their everyday habits and perspectives, and starting with the mental and sleep stuff first before we dive into, meditation and yoga and the more deeper stuff.
Gotcha. And you mentioned, the negative impact that social media is having on society. Do you recommend like limiting the time you spend on social media as well as
Absolutely.
like who you follow?
I think who you follow has a lot to do with it, specifically for the reason that, I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, you are who you surround yourself with. So if you want to surround yourself with positive, goal-driven, passionate people, then that's what you need to do on social media too. Because us as human beings, we're never meant to have this large of an access to this like large amount of people. So for example, if you have a close group of friends of 15 people and, one of them has a tragedy in their life, that's going to affect you because you care about them. And just because they're in your close niche of friends. So with social media, if we see, something bad happen to somebody, like every time we read a news article online or, we hear somebody's story on their social media, that affects us. So if you think about it, the amount of times that you're seeing negative things that will affect you, you're just increasing that number by tens of thousands. So people are, more stressed out. I mean, there's just an insane list of negative impact that social media has, but I think it's obviously not going to go away. So I think the only way around it is to just spread awareness and help people, see the perspective and limit their time on social media, what they post, who they follow, their interpretation of things that they see on there, like knowing that it's, people only post the best parts of their life, knowing that, you probably shouldn't be on your phone 2 hours before bed or 2 hours after you wake up, and you shouldn't spend so much time on your phone. You should focus on being more present, little things like that. If I can just teach them that and spread awareness that way, that'll make a huge difference.
Awesome.
And just especially teaching the younger generation that, the amount of followers and likes you have doesn't define
What
you.
is in your opinion, kind of a healthy time limit to put on yourself to be on social media, or does it just kind of depend on each person?
It kind of depends. Obviously, to grow engagement in a following, you have to be present and involved in the community. But I think, it kind of depends on what your lifestyle is like. Like, for example, if you really want to, if there's a person out there who really wants to make an effort to go to the gym every day, but they're spending 4 hours on their phone and they have every excuse in the book as to why they didn't go work out today, priorities. Look at the amount of time spent on your phone, or set a warning on your phone saying, hey, you've reached 4 hours of usage today. Maybe you should go do something else, or, go outside for a little bit. And I just think, I've came from there too. There's so many excuses as to why we don't or do things, but I think we just need to take ownership and reprioritize.
Yeah. And again, then it all comes back to your why,
Exactly.
Yep.
And that's, right there. Always remember your why. I think just giving people spreading awareness, giving perspective, and just teaching people the basics will do so much to change their life just with those three things.
Yeah. So do you still get time to go out and fish?
Oh yeah. Not as much as I want to lately, and I've kind of had to take a break, just because it's starting to affect my self-confidence a little bit, just because I've gone out and fished so many times recently and haven't caught anything, and I'm just getting frustrated with it. So I think I need to just take a healthy break and maybe read more about trout water, or read more about, what flies I should be using, or something to give myself a challenge. So the next time I go out and fish, I can try something new and hopefully increase my success rate. 'Cause man, it's been rough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but
I feel your pain. And here in the summer, it's always kind of hard to fish out here because it gets so hot and the fish are so lethargic, and it's just hard to get them to bite sometimes. So hopefully going into the fall, we'll be a little more active and have some more success out there. So I'm excited because this is kind of, it's not really, it's a little bit different than what I normally do, but it's important. It's important. And I think a lot of people out there are going to benefit from hearing this kind of conversation.
I'm definitely excited to see the response.
Yeah. And everybody struggles with all this stuff. So
oh yeah,
hopefully it will help somebody, Well, thank
all right.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, thanks for listening. I know this was a little longer than typical for this show, but I felt very important and hopefully impactful. If you found this conversation to be helpful, just a reminder to please let us know by leaving a review or sending an email to Angie@thewomanangler.com. I look forward to hearing from you. If you or anyone you know is experiencing suicidal thoughts, help is always available. Call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline 24 hours a day at 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. As one of my favorite spiritual awakening, expanding your awareness or expanding your consciousness YouTubers and podcasters, Aaron Dowdy says, peace, much love, and namaste. See you next week on the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast.